The lynching of one African-American boy, Emmett Till, in 1955 provided a spark for the civil rights movement. Yesterday, nearly 58 years after his death, Emmett Till's cousin commemorated him and put his legacy into his own context at the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington.
They fired the first shot when they shot Emmett. They fired the second shot when they shot Medgar Evers. The third shot when they shot Dr. King. But we're not going to run. We're going to march. And we're going to change this system.
And as Emmett Till provided a focal point for the civil rights movement 5 decades ago, so today the death of other black boys is inspiring newly intense activism, particularly in Florida, where protests against stand your ground laws mobilized not only after Trayvon Martin's death early last year, but also after the shooting death of Jordan Davis, also 17 years old, last November. Jordan was sitting with friends in an SUV parked in a Jacksonville parking lot last November when registered gun owner Michael David Dunn allegedly fired 8 to 9 rounds into that SUV after an argument over loud music. 2 rounds hit Jordan. Ever since his death, his parents have remained vocal, and that's why they're here in D.C. this weekend, commemorating the March on Washington and pushing for more change. Joining me now are Jordan Davis's mom and dad, Lucia McBath and Ron Davis, along with the family attorney, John Phillips. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Lucy, did you mean to become an activist, and do you see yourself as an activist now?
It's so funny that you should ask that, because I come from a family of civil rights activists. My father was very active with the Illinois branch of the NAACP for years. And I remember as a child sitting in the back seat of the car, traveling around with Mom and Dad as we followed Dr. Martin Luther King and Roy Wilkins of the NAACP. I remember just having our blankets and potato chips and coloring books in the back seat of the car as we followed them around. And I remember my father giving speeches all over the country, and I had no idea what he was speaking to or what he was speaking for. As I became older and understood what my father was doing, I did ask him one day, I said, "Daddy, you know, you were never there. You were never there." And he said, "I wasn't there because I was married to the NAACP. I was married to civil rights." And that is so profound to me now, because I understand exactly what he meant. And being here this weekend has meant the world to me, because I believe I'm supposed to now carry out what my father started.
Yeah. There's something about watching Emmett Till's cousin standing there now as an adult man and realizing that Emmett would have been an adult man. That's the age he would have been. And yet knowing that your son was lost and feeling like, have we made any progress? Now what happened with your son is not the same thing. We don't make equivalencies. But the loss of a child, and then the need to talk about the laws around that loss.
And it goes back for me, my parents were both in World War II. My mother was a nurse. She was a WAC in World War II. And she was a nurse, and she remembered, and she was always telling me the story about how in those times that she was trying to patch up and save the lives of soldiers, whether you be black or white soldiers. And the Southern white soldiers told her, the N-word, "Don't put your hands on me," even though she was trying to save their life. And it was always profound to her that people had so much hate in their heart that they wouldn't even let a black woman save their life. They would rather die than that. And that was always profound to me. My father always said that when he was in France and Germany, and he would drive the fuel truck to the front, that if you were a black soldier, they would take the machine gun off the top of your truck that used to protect you against the German planes if you were a black soldier, because the Southern whites would think that you would go up there and shoot them, your own people. So that was profound for me, and my parents always taught me to have the opposite view of the world and view all Americans as Americans and not separate. And so that's why my view is separate, and for this to happen to our son, again, I'm viewing it that this was a particular hatred that this person had for my son as a black child, but that's not the way America, and that's not the way the world is.
The challenge of trying to raise a child to be safe, but then not to hate.
Right.
How were you walking that path before this tragedy? How were you trying to communicate that?
Jordan and I had many, many, many discussions about these kinds of things. Many discussions about the fact that he was a young black man trying to live in a world that would not always embrace him because of the color of his skin. But that despite that, he still had the freedom to be who God ordained him to be, who we believed he would be, and he was to continue to aspire to that, and, you know, for that no matter what. And that he mattered, that we had faith in him, we believed in him, that he could be whoever he wanted to be. Even if he just wanted to be a garbage man, he could do that, but do and be the best that you could be. So those were the kinds of discussions that we had with him all the time. And we know that Jordan really believed in who he was as an individual, as a person. We have no doubt about that. So despite everything that has happened, Jordan has turned out to be who we expected.
Is there any way to get justice? I know there's a way to get a conviction, but is there a way to get justice? What would that look like?
Justice is spelled one way. It's defined a million different ways. You know, justice clearly starts with a conviction. This guy clearly did wrong. Not only killed Jordan, but shot at 3 other boys. So any stand your ground defense when you're shooting 3 boys leaving the scene, I'm sorry, that does not apply. It should not apply, even though it might be in the jury instructions. Then you look at civil justice, and the civil justice system just gives money. It's really not that great. Then you look at and where Ron and Lucy excel, and Sabrina and Tracy is changing the law. And really getting people, it's a butterfly effect. And I like to say I was one of the first ones touched. I mean, I'm sitting here getting chills over and over and over again, and kind of like them getting drugged into this. My grandfather and great-grandfather were lawyers and judges in Mississippi who went and drafted wills for people they said they shouldn't. They shouldn't go in these African-American houses and draft wills. And, you know, when this happened, it put me closer to them and helped me understand my skin may be a different color, but we're all the human race, and we've got to do better. And I mean, my God, I've been so touched by everything this weekend. I can't even. It's indescribable.
You all just absolutely set the table for us here, because I appreciate how generous you've been with your intergenerational story. That we're always standing here with our parents and with our children, and that you have lost your child is unspeakable, but that you are here together, and that you are continuing to parent him despite his loss is extraordinary. And I appreciate that you continue to be parents to your son, even though your son is gone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Lucia McBath, Ron Davis, and John Phillips, thank you all for being here and for sharing every part of your story. Up next, my father shares his memories of the March on Washington with me and the moment that he will never forget. We'll be right back.